Before there was a movement, there was a people. Before there was a name, there was a memory that survived the ocean, that survived the whip, that survived 400 years of being told, you are nothing, you come from nothing, you have nothing to return to. And yet, something remembered. They gave it one image, a man with dreadlocks, smoking, playing guitar on a beach. They made it a lifestyle brand. They put it on t-shirts, they played it in hotel lobbies, and they buried the philosophy underneath all of it. Because if you understood what Rastafari was actually teaching, not the surface, not the stereotype, but the full living African worldview underneath, you would never look at the system the same way again. And they cannot afford for you to see clearly. This tradition has been shaking empires since 1930, not with armies, not with weapons, with something far more dangerous, a complete and total rejection of the colonial lie about who African people are. Rastafari looked at everything the colonial world built, its churches, its governments, its economies, its definition of beauty, its version of history, and gave it one name, Babylon. And then it pointed in the opposite direction, towards something ancient, sovereign, and undefeated, and gave that one name too, Zion. Today we go inside both. The real ones, the ones that were never on the t-shirt. At the center of everything Rastafari teaches is JAH, not a man in the sky, not a distant deity who requires priests, confessionals, and ties to access. JAH is the divine creative force, living, breathing, and present inside every human being. The word itself comes from a shortened form of Yahweh found in the Psalms. But in Rastafari, it carries the weight of something far older than the Bible. JAH is what Kemetic called the Netru, the divine forces that animate all existence. JAH is what the Yoruba call Ashe, the sacred power that makes things happen. JAH is what the Bantu traditions call Muntu, that human being understood as a living vessel of divine energy. Rastafari did not invent a new god. They gave a new name to an ancient African understanding of the divine. And the most radical thing about this understanding, JAH does not live outside you. JAH lives within you. This is why Rastafari says I and I instead of I and you. That construction is a theological statement as precise as anything in Kemetic's mystery schools. It means the divine in me recognizes and is one with the divine in you. There is no separation. There is no hierarchy between you and the source. Think about what that means for a people who were told for 400 years that they were less than human. Babylon is the most powerful concept in Rastafari and the most misunderstood one. People hear it and think it is a vague word for evil or a distant reference to ancient Mesopotamia. It is far more precise than that. In Rastafari, Babylon is the entire architecture of oppression, political, economic, spiritual, and psychological that was constructed on the foundation of African enslavement. It is not just slavery itself. It is everything slavery built, and everything that maintains the conditions of slavery after the physical chains were removed. Babylon is the colonial church that told enslaved Africans to endure suffering in this life for reward in the next, while the slave masters sat in the front pew, giving thanks to the same God. Babylon is the economic system engineered so that African people's labor generates wealth that flows only upward and outward, never back. Babylon is the media that positions black people as the villain in every story and makes the standard of beauty permanently unachievable for black people. Babylon is the school that teaches African children their history begins in chains. But the deepest Babylon is not outside you. It is the voice inside your own mind that has accepted the colonial story. The internalized shame, the belief that your culture is primitive, that your spirituality is witchcraft, that your natural hair needs to be fixed, that your African name is too difficult to pronounce, that your ancestors were savages waiting to be civilized. Rastafari calls that voice Babylon inside you, and it says, burn it out. Burn Babylon is not a call to violence. It never was. It is a call to the most dangerous revolution of all, the revolution of the mind. What is Zion? If Babylon is the system, Zion is its complete opposite. And Zion is not what most people think either. In mainstream understanding, Zion is Jerusalem, the biblical promised land. In Rastafari, Zion is Africa, specifically Ethiopia, the unconquered kingdom, the crown of the continent, the throne that held when everything else fell. But even beyond the physical, Zion is a state of being. Zion is what you are when you have shaken Babylon off, completely, internally and externally. It is the condition of a person who knows who they are, who lives in alignment with shape, with nature, with their ancestors. Zion is the sovereign African self, fully restored to its original dignity. It is not a place you travel to. It is a state you return to, because it was always yours. It was simply covered. The physical repatriation, African people in the diaspora returning to Africa, is real in Rastafari tradition. Haile Selassie himself granted land in Shashamane, Ethiopia, for this purpose. But alongside the physical return, there is the deeper return. Back to your natural hair, your ancestral name, your indigenous spiritual framework, your original foods, your original identity. Rastafari calls this journey Exodus, the movement from Babylon to Zion. And it is not a one-time event, it is a daily practice. Every single day you choose consciousness over conditioning, you are walking the Exodus. Livity and the Principles, how a Rastafari lives and what they stand on.
As it is written here,
Rastafari is not a theology you attend on Sundays and forget by Monday. It is a complete way of life called Livity. The principle that every daily choice is a spiritual practice. How you eat, how you move, what you allow into your body and your mind, all of it sacred. All of it either raising you toward JAH or pulling you down toward Babylon. Idle food is central, natural, whole, unprocessed. Most serious practitioners eat plant-based. No meat killed in fear and suffering. No food built in a laboratory. The body is a temple of JAH. What you feed it either sharpens the instrument or dulls it. The reasoning, the communal gathering for discussion of scripture, philosophy, and life is another core practice. It looks remarkably like the elder councils and deliberation circles that have existed across Africa for 10,000 years. Collective wisdom, no single voice elevated above another. JAH speaks through the community. The principles. While Rastafari has no single church or creed, the tradition stands on clear pillars. The divinity of Haile Selassie as the fulfillment of African prophecy and the visible proof of Black kingship. The African origin and identity of all Black people. The spiritual and physical repatriation to Africa. The rejection of Babylon as a spiritual evil. Ital Livity as daily devotion. I and I consciousness. The divine within every person. And the coming age of Zion, when justice is not deferred but realized. These were not philosophical luxuries. For the people who built this, the poor and dispossessed of Jamaica, the scattered children of Africa, these principles were the difference between a people who broke and a people who endured. Here is what they never tell you. Rastafari did not emerge from nowhere. Its spiritual DNA runs through layers of African tradition that predate Christianity, predate Islam, and reach all the way back to the Nile Valley. Back to Kemet, the concept of JAH, the divine life force living inside the human being, has its direct ancestor in the Kemetic Ka, the animating spirit within every person. The idea that divinity is not above you in some distant heaven, but inside you as your very nature. That is not a new idea. That is the oldest African idea. It survived the Middle Passage in fragments, in rhythm, in the bones of people who refuse to forget. Babylon and Rastafari maps almost exactly onto the Kemetic concept of Isfet. Disorder, untruth, the force that opposes Ma'at. Zion maps onto Ma'at itself, the cosmic principle of truth, balance, and right order. The Rastafari who spoke of burning Babylon was speaking the same language as the Kemetic priest who said Isfet must be defeated for Ma'at to reign. Different words, same African knowing, same ancient fire. When Bob Marley sang, they were chanting in the same current as the priests of Kemet, the griots of Mali, the Ifa diviners of Yoruba land. Africa never stopped speaking. The world just stopped listening. Why this still matters. In a world that is still run by Babylon, still extracting, still colonizing, still telling African people their worth is measured by how well they serve the machine, Rastafari remains one of the most complete and coherent answers ever produced by any people, anywhere. It says, you are not what they made you. You are what JAH made you. Your history is not chains. Your history is pyramids and emperors, philosophers and healers, warriors and queens. The exile is not permanent. The covering is not who you are. Zion is real, and every day you choose to live in truth rather than Babylon, you are already there. They told you this was about music and marijuana. They were afraid of the philosophy underneath. Now you know the philosophy, and knowing is not enough. The question Rastafari asks, the question Kemet asked before it, the question every African tradition has always asked is this: now that you know, what will you do with the knowing? The first Rastafari was African. So are you. Subscribe to African Magnetic Ojas. See deeper, think clearer, build power from within.